I'm, I'm a really good student, so you just lead wherever you want the conversation to go, and I'll do my best. And if I'm not getting it, just make it quite clear, like a 3-year-old would understand, and I'll get it sooner or later.
Yeah, I have problems with that because my 3-year-old does not understand me, and I do not understand him. But that's okay. We'll get into that.
More imagination. He's probably living in the right hemisphere completely.
Yeah, and I'm really outside of that one.
Right, and so he becomes your best teacher then.
Absolutely, that's absolutely true. Oh, there he is. We're already live, and Justin Bailey already comes on. Thanks, Justin. We haven't even started yet. I just pressed live. I didn't say anything to Glenn over here. I appreciate you being on, brother. Let's get the show in a row. Let me do the introduction, and then we'll get going and dive into questions and dive into your background.
Okay, sounds good.
So, welcome everybody to yet another live interview show with Become a Fearless Father. And today I am blessed to be accompanied by Len Wright. It was so awesome to set this up because Len was one of the guys that's like, dude, I want to be on your show. Let's do this. I got some great things I want to share with your audience. I'm like, awesome. That sounds awesome. And then I saw you actually the other day. You've been on, I think, Kenyon Zitka's show. And that's a close friend of mine. I was like, man, that's going to be awesome. So I was really looking forward to this. So let's get it off, started right away with this, because I loved your profile picture. And then right on one, I got to make sure that I'm right in one corner, it says this: become a walking question mark. And I was like, yes, I like that. So
do you like it?
Yeah, there you go. So share with me, man, how does one because yes, absolutely, you're right. Curiosity, right? That's where that comes from. I read the book Curiosity. I'm really into that. But I want to know from you, man, how does one become then a walking question mark?
A lot of thank you, and I love the opportunity to be on the show as well. I think we're going to have a fantastic, great time and blow some minds at the same time. So, how does one become a walking question mark? It really comes down to the inner work that we do, because what the inner question mark, become a walking question mark, is really referring to is our states of opinions and thinking we know. Thinking we know this, thinking we know that. Oh, I know about this. I have a feeling about this. I have a belief. I think this should be this. I think this is right. This is wrong. I think. And really, when we look at how that comes about, those opinions, which are beliefs, they're formed by only just the experiences we've had the opportunity to go through and the perceptions that we viewed those experiences in. So as an example, if I'm a person that has never looked at any kind of improvement of self, any kind of looking within, and I'm just one of the vast majority of people out there that are bumping around not knowing what they're doing, but acting like they do, then all of my decisions, all of my preferences, let's call them, in life, are going to come from the beliefs that I hold from a state of ignorance. So I'm ignoring all this out here. I'm not getting it. I'm not even really working on myself too much, but I have an opinion about this, and I have an opinion about that, and I think this should be this way, and I think it's all from a point of view that we really don't know what game it's. The thought just came to me. It's like actually playing chess and the person showing up in football gear, ready to play football.
That might work.
Yeah, for about 2 or 3 seconds, and then all of a sudden there are chessboards everywhere, and that's really what's happening in people's life. The chess pieces are everywhere because they're playing the wrong game and they don't even know it. So become a walking question mark is about examining your life, examining yourself, and getting to know yourself in a way that you never have before by relinquishing the need to be right, relinquishing the need to have to know about that specific thing. The goal, the really deep end goal that's in all symbols, in esoteric and mysticism, is really becoming the middle pillar, they call it, or equilibrium, becoming in the middle of something. And the reason that we do that is not, everything has to have a result, everything has to have a reason for doing it. And the reason for doing that is because if you're in the middle of a situation or an event or belief, and you can look at this side of it and see what's going on, and you can look at this side of it and see what's going on, but you're not for either one, but you can see both, you then have the widest perceptual view. You have, and if we're talking about evolving, and if we're talking about learning, you've given yourself the widest possible perception of possibility. The other, when you choose, I'm for this, I know about this, I know that I'm doing this, you limit your possibility, you limit the experience right away, because your brain goes, oh, if you already know it, then we can stop learning about it. And it shuts off. And we become dumbified. We become ignorant in that situation, even though we may be calling ourselves an expert, or think of ourselves as an expert in that way. Parenting is exactly that. Parenting is that because, I mean, it's the same as leading a company or having a relationship, anything. It's all the same thing. Is if we think we know a situation, we've stopped learning about it. And so become a walking question mark is to question absolutely everything. You know, I heard a statement a long time ago from a teacher. It was really funny. It's great to be skeptical. Totally cool. But be as skeptical about why you're skeptical. Which is what I'm saying is become a walking question mark is looking behind the activity of your physical self and identifying within you what the premise is for that opinion, for that belief. It's interesting when you do that, because a lot of our beliefs were accepted by situations or from people that we would never, ever ask their advice or willingly accept their advice in our life. But because they've said something or something's happened in a unique moment in our life, we boom, accept that belief. And then that belief becomes a precursor to all of our opinions of what we think should happen. And thus, Klaus, is why our world does not have peace right now. Because we all think we know how to create peace, but very few of us are creating peace within ourselves first.
Wow.
It's the same as parenting. You can't be an epic father without being an epic father to yourself. So if you're inside treating yourself badly, you're going to treat your child badly. It's the same thing, right? So becoming a walking question mark then allows us to go through. Have you ever read any of or heard any of Eckhart Tolle's work? Power of Now and a few other books. You'd probably really enjoy them. But he has a really unique way when he goes and on vacation or as a tourist. If he's going to look at a chapel and he's looking at the architecture and he really wants to figure it out and there's a tour for it, he'll actually do that touristy thing in 3 different days. And so the first day, he's going to go and he's not going to read any information about it. He's not going to go on the tour. He's just going to go through it himself. Going to go around and just take it in completely fresh. And then the next day, he's going to, that night before, he's going to read up about it more. And he's going to, find out what others think and take that biased information from others in and go, and then he's going to go see it again. And he will actually have a different experience because of the new information he brought in. Third day, he goes on the tour. And so it's explained in a completely different way to him. He has 3 experiences with the same event. That's what become a walking question mark is all about. Is being able to go through events in your life without thinking you know what the events mean to you. Without thinking you know how to solve them, how to go through them, like you know what you're doing. That breeds a bunch of compromise and resentment within us. Well, somewhere along the way, we've been taught by society, our educational systems, our governments, that saying we don't know is somehow a pariah. It's somehow a weakness. And it's not, because it's still the student. Michelangelo at 87 years old was quoted as saying, "I'm still learning." He was a great mystic. A lot of people don't know, mysticism has been around and shaped absolutely everything in our world. But it's done in such a way that although it's out in front of us, it's all hidden. because it's all using perceptual skills like I'm talking about. Become a walking question mark is actually a motto in mysticism in certain groups, and it's about not identifying, not labeling. As soon as we label something as this or that, oh, this is good for me, oh, this is bad for me, it ends up like the misunderstanding is in every situation, in everything, there has to be all sides. It has to be dark light. And until you realize that, you're continually chasing only the good, only the light, and that good opinion is only coming from a place that thinks they know what's good for us. We would never have accepted most of the most valuable moments in our life because at the start, they were things that we didn't want in some way, shape, and form. So a lot of times we're not the best choosers of our own destiny because we're only choosing from a limited perspective. We're choosing from a point of view that thinks they know, but it's really coming from an egoic state. It's coming from here it is. It's coming from a limitation already. If you take a copier and you have the original that has a line through it, how many times can you copy that original so that it doesn't end up in the copy? Never will happen. It will happen it has to. So really the only way to solve it, so-called, to get rid of the mar, is to, in the original, remove it. And then after that, you've got no mar. You've got no defect, suppose it. So this is really what it comes all down to, is no matter if we're endeavoring to be the best parent, or we're endeavoring to be the best CEO or entrepreneur, or the best cyclist, or the best munchie eater, I don't, whatever it doesn't. It always starts with you, because no matter where you go, there you are. That's Voltaire said, but it's true. So my productivity hack, my life hack, is always what Socrates said, is know thyself. And I say that a lot because it really just sums everything up. That's why we're here. And if we think we already know what we want, what's good for us, how we do things inside, oh, I know that about myself, oh, I know, then we'll never learn truly what's going on inside of us. You know, and then this thing that is meant to be a sanctum, a sanctuary that creates our peace, that creates our power, is then left with dust and cobwebs on it. And what I'm talking about is this thing that I'm rubbing right here. Our temple. And it's not a misnomer, because if you look at any language, it's the same thing. It's pointing, like I said, mysticism is all pointing, if you are aware of what they're pointing at. This inside here is the temple, not built by human hands, as the Bible says. This in here is where that power is. We have to learn how to be able to use it, because we're in a state of evolvement right now, and that evolvement is how to learn this, to use this tool, which is called consciousness, which is the opportunity to say, I know, or I don't know. Each leading unto its own pathway or destination. It's free will. But we're still fairly new in using it in our evolvement. So our goal is to be able to endeavor to understand ourselves more and more, because when we do that, when we understand, oh man, you know, I get tweaked when someone says this to me, when this event happens, when my child does this, when I get tweaked inside. Why should this outside event, person, whatever, affect my internal temple, my world? Why should the storm from outside rain inside? And that is what we're here to be able to find out. And how I know it's why we're here is, and I've said it many times, is please somebody in the records of human history show me a human that has never had challenge in their lifetime. You can't find it. Even our teachers, our great gurus, our ones in history that we look at, they all have had them too. So if that's the case, Klaus, then that must be a crucial part of why we're here. If nobody can be without it. And so it is, when you start researching in depth, it's we're here to evolve this consciousness. And we do that through the choice of, do you want to grow or do you not want to grow? Do you want to learn or do you don't want to learn? Nobody can make you learn. It's like the child in school. They can sit there and, play with their eraser or pencil or whatever. Geez, I'm dating myself, aren't I? Pencil and eraser. Their computer, they can play with it and miss out on the teaching, free will, or they can apply themselves and become this humble student, taking everything in, realizing this is actually a classroom for me. I get to be here to learn, not I have to be here. What time does it let out? Because both of those types of things are being lived out right now in almost like a separation work worldwide, is that there are some who are enamored and have a thirst for knowing themselves, and some who are just waking up to it, and others who want no part of it whatsoever.
True.
And so my philosophy on, whether, like I said, whether it be fatherhood or whether it be anything, is right back to the original me. And then I make me better. The outside is a projection of that. So my life becomes very, if I might say, simplified, although in this world, right? Simplified in the way that I'm not chasing all these dogs' tails out here. I got one dog's tail and it's inside of me. I don't need to chase it. It's not gone anywhere. And so once I actually learned that that's where the home is, and I connect and align there, then everything I touch in my outside world is a projection of that light. So as an example, in my business, when I'm speaking to somebody, I'm not speaking from a point of frustration from the last blah, blah event or thing or belief in my head, or, right? I'm able to be present with them. Boom. I can flow. I can be a conduit, like what we're meant to be. Electricity moves through us for a reason, right? We're meant to, that's what consciousness is. We're bioelectromagnetic beings. And what the cool thing is, Klaus, is we actually form to the same rules and laws of those things. So you can sit down with an electrician, as an example, or a physics professor, or somebody who studies magnetism, and you could talk with them and understand about yourself. Yet they're talking about something completely different, because as an example, electricity, we are electric. Our thoughts are actually electric. They're electric impulses. From when we have a thought, it's from one synapse to the other, like a filament in a bulb, right? And nice sound effects, but that's energy that's moving in, but it's electric energy, right? And our feelings, our emotions that are made from the chemicals that are released from our endocrine system are magnetic. They repel or attract. I get a feeling from that person. Yep. It's all magnetic. So when we understand electricity and magnetics, and we understand how they work, we can see it enacted in everything we do in our life. As an example of what I just said about the magnetics, understanding, oh, okay, so what are the rules of magnetics? And there's 4 basic rules, and it's adhesion, cohesion, attraction, and repulsion. And so when we understand those, we can go, okay, and if we look at our emotional states as the magnet, we can see what we're attracting or what we're propelling in our life completely, because it gets fed by what we feel about the situation. That's how things show up. We have the thought, right? Thought comes into our mind. We go, yeah, in some way, shape, or form. Some way we identify that thought as we agree with it. We uphold it. And then because we do that, And I might just say the upholding of it could be through a fear of it.
Mm-hmm.
Still grabbing onto it in some way, shape, and form, making it important. As soon as the thought in that nanosecond is made important in some way, shape, and form, then the chemicals that are going to make the feeling that match that thought are then excreted in our body, either on an acid base with any kind of fear, or the drugs, the chemicals inside of us, like oxytocin as an example, serotonin, dopamine, that are the good drugs that actually heal us. There's hundreds and hundreds of them. Okay, so either or, fear or love, we secrete the matching material, chemical, drug inside of us, like a bartender. We mix the drink, then by feeling, it creates the feeling, we become that thought, move through us, and then we act on it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So understanding how we think and understanding this process allows us to tweak our engine whenever it gets out of control, to be able to, and I'm going to go back to the walking question mark, to be able to, when we're about to go, no, you're wrong about that, or yeah, blah, 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 we're able to take a conscious pause, a gap, and go, maybe I don't know all there is here to know. And then we come into that conversation, into that experience, more humble, more of a learning state. Not a martyr. Not, some people look at kindness and love as a weakness in that way. They look at it because it's a gentleness about it. But again, we go back to states of being, fear and love. And we look at love as being the most potent, the most powerful state of human consciousness available to humans. Unconditional love is at the absolute top. It's the most powerful. Changes anything. However, shoot for the moon, we at least will hit the stars, that old saying. We're shooting for unconditional love, but at least by doing that, maybe we become more gentle in it. That gentleness, though, if it's actually on the side of real love, is the most powerful thing on our planet, in the universe. There's no weakness about it, actually. Weakness is in actually choosing fear because that's the only thing that's given to us by our mind at the only time. It takes more work to do the other, but at the same time, the rewards are absolutely immense. As an example, we don't secrete acid into our body, which starts eating us from the inside. Aging is acid. What does acid do to meat? Decays it, eats it away, doesn't it? Putrefies it. Well, if you're not eating, but you're worrying, you're secreting acid still. Where do you think the acid's going to go? What do you think the acid's going to work on? You. Right? Thus you see somebody who, it was really funny. I seen a picture the other day of, I think there's 4. And there were celebrities that, you'd know most of them. One was Dick Van Dyke, and Mel Brooks. There was a few. They're all in their high 90s. Dick Van Dyke's 98. And they're smiling and standing. There's no walkers in front of them. There's no canes. And these individuals that I'm talking about, they all study this material privately. They don't talk about it. Mystics usually aren't too open about what they're studying, because it probably comes from a point where, a couple hundred years ago, we would have been burned at the stake for talking about what we're talking about right now. And this is really the premise of it all, is the reason we would have been burned at the stake is because of the fact that we're pointing inside ourselves instead of pointing out. That's been the age-old thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and on years debate. Where's the real power? And anything that tells you it's inside is usually looked at, scoffed at, looked at as far out, taken away, tried to be hidden. And they all say it's outside. That's your happiness. That's your satisfaction. That's your savior. It's outside of you. You just wait. You just wait, because someday you're going to be saved and it's going to be awesome. Someday. You have to die first. But that's cool, because so you spend the whole life waiting for something that's not going to happen. Actually, let me rephrase that. You spend your whole life waiting for something that's already happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's already happening. As you know, Master Jesus said, the kingdom of God is at hand. It's now. It's always happening. It's always at hand. It's inside the temple. You're conscious. You're able to think. You're able to choose. So thus, you're able to be God in the way of creation for your world. You're able to choose right and wrong. And that brings us back to that become a walking question mark, because then we don't choose improperly.
Mm-hmm.
We're choosing from a state of possibility instead of choosing from a state that limits us right out of the gate. And as a parent, it's exactly the same thing. Stop knowing that what we think our children are doing, saying, thinking, and find out about them. Become absolutely enamored with our own growth so that our children then start questioning themselves in that way. Start learning that there is no way to fail. There is no real mistake. As long as you learn from it and the cycle ends, you've grown. That's not a mistake. That's not failure.
Mm-hmm.
If we teach that to our children, their self-esteem will grow. Right now, society, education, religion is constantly telling you you're not enough. You've got some sort of ailment that's a limitation. I talk to a lot of people that come to me and say, I have a learning disability. And I say, really? And once we get talking, I find out that they also have some sort of hobby or passion or skill set that's amazing. Maybe they play soccer and they're just amazing soccer players. And yet they have this learning disability. I'm like, how'd you learn how to be amazing there then? Misunderstanding. We don't understand that the whats aren't important. The hows are the important thing. How to think, not what to think. Not memorizing this thing and memorizing this. No, figuring out, what is that thing to me? What's the relationship? How does that thing work? What's the process for that? Right? Einstein, with his students, used to say every morning, what new thing have you learned about yourself today? And the ones that said no and they couldn't come up with anything were sent out of the room. He said, if you can't learn what's really important first, how are you going to learn what's outside of you? And that's really my premise, is it should be first in our lives. It should be the thing that we're OCD about. Finding out about what makes us tick. Why do I think the way I think? Why do I choose what I choose? Why do I feel the way about the things I feel the way about? Why are my opinions that way? Can I see where I'm limiting myself? Can I see where I'm so adamant that this is the right way to do things on, a major debate in the world? I side here. Are you even actually involved in it? Is it happening to you? We're so caught up with our own opinions and hearing ourselves talk about them. Mm-hmm. That how can we learn about ourselves? We think we already know it.
True. I'm guilty.
That's where the walking question mark comes in, right? It's a childlike curiosity about life, rather than labeling everything and becoming the adult that knows it all and yet is falling apart.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Man, I love it. So at least what I said on Facebook was absolutely right. I said, look, this is going to be a deep in. We're going to go deep. And I only asked one question. For the people that hop on right now, I only asked one question so far, and I've just been sitting there like, okay, so for anybody watching, and I have a lot of, I'm connected with ClickFunnels and I follow Russell Brunson, and a lot of people that follow me as well, there are dappreneurs that follow him. They know this picture of this little girl, and then a hose is going into her face. It's just like, so that's kind of how I feel right now in the first 30 minutes, and we still got 30 minutes to go. So I appreciate that. Man, I already got my notebook full, and I still got 30 minutes to go. So I appreciate that as well. Before we go any further, because I actually got more questions than I had when I started this thing off. So thank you for that.
I see, become a walking question mark. More questions.
Exactly.
Awesome.
No, but that's why I asked that question, because I really became interested in that. It's like, you know what? I'm not satisfied with who I am as a man, as myself. I'm not satisfied with who I am at the moment as a husband. And no, sorry, my mistake. It was different. It was, as you said, it was first like, I'm not satisfied with the way my wife is. I'm not satisfied with the way my kids are. I'm not satisfied with the way everything outside myself is, right? And then I start changing that. It's like, okay, that's not going to help me because I can't control them. Right. So I got to start looking within, as you said, right? And then asking myself, like, okay, that just means that, okay, I'm not satisfied with who I am because I am not understanding them from their perspective. I am looking at them from my point of view, which is very, very shallow, small, and closed-minded, right? So that's why I got the book Curiosity. And I wanted to just become a better interviewee, right? So I got to be able to strike two things at the same time. Or more, multiple even, because I wanted to be able to be more curious with my kids, right? On one end, because I want to understand them better, but on the other hand, I know that if I ask them things, right, when they come home and I ask the right question, I'm like, hey, how was your day? Because you know the answer.
Yeah.
Good or bad, end of conversation. So I really trying to look at, okay, what kind of questions can I ask? And I started reading that book. So that's why I was really interested. So I really appreciate you going so in depth on that question. Before we continue.
And Klaus, it's really about cause and effect, right? Which is one of the Hermetic principles, 7 Hermetic principles, that they are the immutable laws to everything. They're what all of the other holy books are written from. Hermetics came first. So when you study that, you get a really an unflawed view of how the earth creates and how we move and are about it. The cause and effect factor, everybody's focused on the effects. And that's where they're trying to change. And that's where you started off with, was I don't like this. Right? And so everybody, that's usually where they stop and they just continue. I don't like this. I want to change this. I don't like this. And you can't make changes in the effect that last, because the effect is in the outer world that's always changing. So it's like picking up sand, and sand it's just always picking up. That's the society's feeling of chasing the dog's tail, running, always trying, because they're living in the effect.
Yeah.
When you instead come from the cause, you changed. You all of a sudden went, well, what's the real cause to me not liking that? Me not liking it. So why don't I like it? What's going on here? What about me do I need to change, to transform, to transmute, to use an alchemy word, into me not having the same perception about it anymore? Because the not like doesn't come from the other person, it comes from you. So wanting to change it in the other person, it's do you see the flaw? And that's where we are in a generation in this world. We're caught up in the effect and trying, and I mean, the making the money, the big cars, the this, the that, the society, the catching up with the Joneses, all that kind of stuff is all based in the effect of things. Nobody's looking at the cause. You know, if you want to have this effect, then you have to draw back and model what cause is going to be the natural cause to that effect. What creates it? You know, if I want success in my business, but I'm really grumpy and I believe in lack and I'm constantly complaining about things, I can change me wanting a business. I can go on and work harder in my business. I can go take business courses. I can go get a big, better computer, better offices, better. That's not going to have sustainable change, because the not liking, the resistance in the whole experience is coming from me. I change me, and everything then proceeds to change from that. Exactly. Good on you. I mean, that's fantastic. That's exactly what it's really about, in increments, in increments that really never end.
Yeah, exactly.
They just continue like stairways, stairway to heaven, right? Where it's like continual, each rung of an experience you go through, and then all of a sudden you come out at the other end, and geez, I was a little more gentle, I was a little more loving to myself and everybody else through that. I wasn't such a bully, or I wasn't such a know-it-all, or I wasn't such a pushover, or I didn't compromise myself through there. Or what? Those little wins actually create the whole evolution of human consciousness. They're very, 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 very important. And yet all we're looking focused on is to be able to get to Starbucks to get the coffee so that we can get to the job that we don't like and the boss that we can't stand, that have all these expectations on us, that we have expectations on us, and we start running. And yet all of it, we're only renting anyhow. Everybody's working so hard and killing themselves over stuff that they're only renting while they're here. And yet there's a Bible scripture that's actually mimicked in every holy book. The Quran, Torah, the Bhagavad Gita, all of them say the same exact thing. And it's seek the kingdom first and all else will be added to you. Inner kingdom. Okay. The next scripture is store up treasures in heaven where neither moth nor dust can consume and thieves cannot break in and steal. All the other physical things can be taken, or will decay, or rust, or die, or you'll die and you'll have to give them up. Whatever it is, they're just temporary. And so if the only thing is that's not temporary, that doesn't change in that same way, is us knowing ourselves inside. Change meaning that we have to keep chasing it. When we transmute ourselves inside, we hold ourselves to those principles and we change ourselves, change our current of electricity, then all of a sudden a new pathway is made, neural pathway, and we have a different life. The old neural pathway gets, the bushes grow over it because we're not using that thinking pattern anymore, and it slowly fades into our past, where the one we are choosing consciously now more and more and more, it's the footsteps are trotting that neural pathway down, and all of a sudden that's the clear pathway becoming. It's about practice. It's work in every moment. Exactly.
Awesome. So we still haven't gotten to who's Len, which I always say with all due respect to anybody I have on or myself, nobody cares who's Len, who's Klaus. Everybody is really, what people care about is what are these two guys, or as Justin said, what are these two legends, which I really appreciate. I don't feel a legend, but still I find it very
You're in there, Justin.
It
takes one to know one.
That's true. That's absolutely true. But it's still, we are here to provide value, but still, it's still nice if you get to talk a little bit about who's Len. Can you share a little bit of your background story?
Yeah, I'll just go into it really quick.
Yeah, sorry, just quick. What I find very important for the Dappener audience out there is what's the family setup as well, right? Married. You said you have a daughter, so explain that a little bit so people know, so they can get the whole picture of where your answers are coming from, where your experience is coming from as well.
Okay, so I've been divorced 7 times. No, I'm just kidding.
Possible.
Well, yes, but it would normally be not an even out in that way. I'm married. This October 20th, it'll be 29 years, and I have a 16-year-old daughter, and also I have a 6-year-old Mastiff puppy. So so that's my little family. The way it looks, we all practice this material together as much as possible, and really that's what creates the strength in the family, the cause of all of us being, accountable for what we say, what we think, what we do within the environment of the family that we're trying to lift up. So I really in this stuff, I have 2 different answers for that. One is I've been in it for about 30 years and intensely, and I say that because that's really when I started actually taking trainings and tools. I started off with neuro-linguistic programming. I went to Dr. Richard Bandler. He's taught Tony and a whole bunch of other people, and created NLP or developed NLP. So I went to him for a while and did some training there, and that was my early 20s. So that's why I say 30 years. But honestly, Klaus, I mean, mysteries of life and the deeper subjects, I can remember 5 and 6 years old being at family funerals, wondering what's death, what is life all about, why is this person in the box not moving and not breathing, what goes on, and being gently forced into that line of seeing the world and having those questions. My mom was 42 when I was born, and she was the youngest in her family. So when growing up, I seen aunts, uncles, cousins, and like just dropping like flies. And so I say 30 years, but really it's been my whole 49 years of being on this earth that I've been led, being enthralled, intoxicated by the deeper things of life and the mysteries, why we do what we do, why we think what we think, how do we think, what is this thing that we're carrying around? Why is it one moment somebody can be happy and another moment somebody can be, wanting to commit suicide? It enthralled me. And when I was in my late teens, I heard that we use approximately only 10% of our potential, and 90% lays dormant in humans. That blew my mind. That, along with the belief that and that they were at that time measuring thoughts out of your head 2 feet. They could the electric current of a thought, focused thought, could be measured 2 feet out of your head. Those two things really blew my mind. I just couldn't get over them, and so they kept playing in me over and over again, wondering what's the other 90% there then for? Why? Like, that's ridiculous. What, like, would you actually only give 10% of your child's potential to them, knowing the other 90% is not what they're using? You wouldn't do that, like, knowingly, like, willingly, right? So it was a big question. That was where my quest really started. And I've been studying human potential pretty much my whole life, but like for the last 30 years, really intensely and deeply, mostly in the last couple decades in the esoteric fields, which is the veil that I keep talking about in the mysticism and that type of idea, the symbols you see everywhere, that type of idea. It is a much deeper understanding, which is what all those philosophers that we quote all the time, everybody from Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, Voltaire, Goethe, I can go on and on and on. They were all secret mystics. They were all mystics that wrote and put out certain information. Even Shakespeare as well. All of his plays are actually plays, if you know how to read them properly, ways for you to enlighten yourself, for ways for you to grow and illuminate within. So when I started understanding that this is the basis, Hermeticism and all the mystical understandings, whether it be astrology or numerology, or all that fit in, and everything is told in allegory, parables. Just like how therapy is done a lot of times by telling stories. And within that story, there's something that affects the person, that heals them, that helps them see themselves in a different way. This is why gurus as Buddha and Jesus and all the books that I mentioned, the holy books, they're all written in stories. They're all written in allegories. But if you don't know how to read them, you end up with the wrong puzzle. They are all of them, every single one of them are guidebooks to self-illumination. Nothing to do with religion. Nothing to do with religion. But because it's been under a veil of religion and they all look outside, the literal meanings have created the society.
Wow.
So
some background.
That's a little about me. That's a little about me. Yeah, I've been doing this for a long time. It's my foremost. It's really, yeah. It's my everything. I've got this thirst that just can't be quenched.
That's awesome. I love it. Man, what a continue. As I said, I got so many questions, but I want to dive in, especially for those dadpreneurs out there. For me, like, we went, that's why I asked about the question mark. I think that for dadpreneurs, important on both aspects, being a dad and being an entrepreneur, right? Because at both sides, you got to have questions. You got to stay thirsty. You got to stay asking yourself, do I really know this? Or, why do I think I know this, etc., which we mostly don't, which then makes us become stagnant, either as a dad or as an entrepreneur? So I thought that was a great question, but I want to go a little bit as well into how can we teach this to our kids? And man, you touched so many topics. I actually kind of lost on where to start, but
well, it's only one answer. There's only one answer to that. That's simple, and it's a simple one. And you'll like that, right? Be it first.
Exactly.
The only way to teach your children. The only way. There is no other way that actually impacts as much as an example. Again, we go back to that's why Jesus, that's why Buddha, they all talked about being it. Even Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. That's the only way to affect things properly is become the cause.
Exactly.
So if you want to teach your child about knowing themselves, about being confident, about being an accelerated learner, you must become that first. If you're interested in learning in your life and your child watches you and sees signs of you devoting yourself to information on your rise, valuing it, because they watch, they'll see what you value. It's what you put your money, your time, your effort into. They watch that. If they see you putting that in, then they then gain a value of it in their own respect and will start learning about themselves too. They'll start taking their school more seriously. But he comes to me and says, my kid doesn't take their school seriously, they're sloughing off. I know, and this is most parents right now, this is the torch point right now. I know that most of the time, okay, nothing's forever, always. Most of the line created that whole process of the child not being interested, not doing well, not doing. And this is the problem, is the parents then go, well, no, what's this? And they blame. And then they get concerned and they get upset that their child is blaming everything as to why they're not succeeding. It's mimicked. It is exactly, and I know dads don't want to hear this, but it is exactly, it's the tough medicine, the same as the copier analogy that I used before. The dad being the original that's copied from. If you have anger and you're expressing it in your family, your child will resent you, period. There's no other way around it, period. The child will grow in resentment, anger, and acid in their body, period. And they will probably have anger to be able to deal with, or they'll have the other backlash, which is the opposite pole, which they'll be bullied. And then the parent goes, why is my child being bullied? Where's the original bully? Where'd they learn those things? Because everything that a child does, enacts in their life, except breathing, is learned. So where'd they learn it from? And if you're constantly going and learned it from here, it's the same as our teachers are doing in our educational systems in most of our countries. They're looking outside themselves going, well, this is wrong. This is wrong. You become a better teacher. Watch how everything changes. So I say that to fathers, you become a better father. I wanted to say too, just to go back, I didn't mention, and you mentioned entrepreneurs, so I wanted to mention too, I am one as well. I go into business ventures every once in a while. I build a company up and then I grow it and then I sell it. I've done it about 5 times in my life. So I get the entrepreneurial side as well. And being a dad, I get the dad part. And the funny thing about the dad part is it's the same as the company part. Hey, kiddo. It's the same as the company part. It's the same as the knowingness, Klaus. We forget that there are teachers as well. We forget that they teach us, as we just actually said this before we started shooting today, before we started recording. Children teach us how to access the other 90% that I was talking about that's dormant in us. Our left hemisphere of our brains is the 10% of our potential that we get stuck in. It's the analytical side. It's the wrong questioning side, only wrong because it's not productive. Am I worth it? Am I value? What are they probably thinking of me right now? How am I doing this right? I'm probably doing it wrong. That's all analytical side. That's all that left brain. And we learn about a deeper meaning in most of the scriptures talking about tithing. Because that's what tithing really is. It's giving up your 10% every month. Giving your left-hand side, your left hemisphere up. Not living from that. Using it when needed to do certain functions. But living from the right hemisphere, which is where flow stems from. Have you ever done something, and this goes for every father that's listening, everybody is listening, because everybody has had it in their life. You ever done something, maybe it's a sport, maybe it's a talent you have, music, singing, something in your life that you were just so good at it, so in the moment, that it just so flowed. It was like this zone that you got into. That's right brain. That's how we're meant to live. We're meant to live from that right brain space that is, like, as Bruce Lee said, like water. Doesn't grab onto things. Doesn't hold. It just moves. It flows. That's why I sent around to some of my clients a couple months ago, I sent around a video of Pearl Jam. And they were live doing a rendition of Black, their song Black. The middle of the song, the guitarist did a solo. And as soon as he got into his solo, his head went back and he became the music. His facial expressions changed. He became the music. And it was not like he was there and the music was there. It was they were together in union. Full right brain flow. Full right brain. And in that, the solo was absolutely amazingly beautiful. Incredible talent. And we're meant to flow everything from that because that is love. He loved it so much in that moment. It was unconditional. He fell into it. And that's right brain. That's what the Bible talks about, the right seat of God. The right hand of God. It's the right hemisphere of your brain because that's the 90% that we need to tap into. But if you know if you're egoic state, right brain, the door's closed and locked. You don't get into flow through resistance. You don't get into flow through fear. Right? They're multiplying. It's like rabbits.
Yeah,
I like that one. See, that's the thing. Did you know, I'm going to say two things to deal with because the children, they're great. Like, it brings it up. Number one is how many times does it take a child to learn a new task? It's usually about average 14, 15 times, a dozen times, right around that, okay? An adult, on the other hand, for the same task, okay, the same level of task for the adult, takes up to 200 times. And the reason is the child doesn't limit by their thinking. The adult does. The child doesn't go into the event thinking it's going to be this, it's going to be that. They just go in flowing right brain into it and play. And allow it to be, and allow it to flow. Plus, along with that, the average child laughs about 400 times a day. The average adult, about 20.
Oh, 20.
Do you see what we're missing? Yeah, what we're missing out, and even 20. I mean, I meet with a lot of people that 20 would be a dream. Do you see how much our children have to teach us about living life?
Yeah.
It's what we've forgotten about. It's what we gave up, thinking we need to be adults, we need to be serious, we need to be responsible. But becoming an adult in that way is actually irresponsibility because we're actually being less productive. Laughing like the child, playing like the child, having no label or meaning for something until we're in it and moving around in it and then just experiencing it. That's the highest of productivity.
Mm-hmm.
If you did that as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, your company culture, your people couldn't wait to get to work.
Mm-hmm.
How much your productivity would change. The pressure is what's killing. Children don't go out to play with a whole bunch of plans first how they're going to play.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys? You guys go out, just go play, right? You don't have to think about how you're playing, you just go play. Adults have lost that ability.
True.
And that's why a lot of times we're so angry. We're so resentful at ourselves for compromising what really works.
Mm-hmm. It's funny that you bring that up, because this is what Justin wrote at the beginning before we started, right? And we get right back. We must become childlike. So,
hey, Justin, where did you get that from? I know in some of our talks, this is what we were talking about.
I was going to say probably from you.
But I'm joking, but because of the fact too. I mean, isn't that what all gurus talk about? When you talk about the Master Jesus, that example, that teacher, he constantly loved being around children. He constantly was saying, become childlike, be like children. Not just because play and fanciful. No, it was because that's where your higher results are. That's where you tap into that 90% of dormant ability that you have, so that you don't have to try as hard in your life.
Mm-hmm.
The reason adults are trying so hard is because we're so stuck on being adults only. We've made it hard. We've taken everything that actually would give us the steady flow through life. We've taken it out of our life as that's irresponsible. That's silly. I'm an adult. I have responsibilities. I don't need to do that. So by doing that, becoming responsible means I'm actually becoming less productive. I'm actually getting less from my investment of my time and effort. I'm still here at work, whether I'm angry or whether I'm at peace. Both, I'm still at work. One is going to give a pathway so that the company rises and makes tons more money, much more fun to be part of, and you have to do a lot less work. The other piles everything up on top of one another, that like Jenga, somebody's always pulling a piece out. And you're always having to make it up and always having to fix it. It's because you're building your sandcastle where the tide's coming in every day.
Mm-hmm.
Just build it a little higher. Build it in a higher place, and then the tide, the water won't reach it. The higher place is here.
Yeah, exactly. What you've talked about, one, and I wanted to say that earlier, but I didn't. I forgot. A lot of things that you tied into, or that you mentioned, tie into what I call zombie dads, right? So that's one. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I just want to mention that real quick to the dads that have been listening to me mentioning, like, stop being a zombie dad. This ties up for me into that. But the other thing that you mentioned is like, you're at work anyway. However, the way you approach it, right, at peace, happy, or just angry all the time. The angrier you are at work, I mean, it's not like you go home and all of a sudden it's a switch and you turn it off. You will bring that anger home, which then will teach you, which your kids will act up on.
And as you know, life is just an echo. That's all life is. Life is a match game, right? So it's just trying to match what you are inside. So if you're angry, more things in your experiences will show you why you should be even angrier. It's not the other way around, where if you're angry, then all of a sudden peace comes to you and gets you to come. No, it's just a match game. So if you believe, as an example, that having kids is a burden, then watch what happens. Your kids will become a burden. If you believe they're a gift, watch what happens. They become a gift. If you believe that, you don't want children and yet you're stuck with them, watch, they'll be taken away in some way.
Mm-hmm.
If you love your children and work on your attachments with them and want the best for them, that's what love is wanting more for the other than for yourself. If you truly love your children, then all of a sudden that echo love comes back to you. So we're talking about, we've talked about entrepreneurship and we've talked about fathership, but it doesn't matter because the same laws are immutable. They're through everything. They're the same ones that you used with your significant other to make a relationship that's strong and healthy. It's the same laws or principles enacted that makes your company strong and healthy. It's the same ones that make your children, your relationship with them strong and healthy. It's not learning a whole bunch of things. I get my clients to stop a lot. I mean, we need to, trinkets, and you need to know how something works and stuff. I don't mean that. But so focused on the motivation point, if you learn what you're truly passionate about inside and learn how you enact and how you move and how your brain works, you don't need to motivate yourself. You just need to choose properly and stop compromising yourself. And then all of a sudden you're like cork in water. It will float to the top. We're all meant to do that. That's our natural thing, is to float to the top. The only way we don't is when we believe the thoughts that say we can't, that prove we can't. Look at this guy down the block. He's making it so that I feel this way and I can't do this. Look at my job. I'm stuck here. I'm stuck. The statement that's the most important in all of our lives is what was in the Bible. I am. I am is a statement of that image, made in the image of God. It's the statement creating in the moment of who you are. I'm angry. Okay. You are. Good. You manifest. That's what you are. I'm at peace. Okay. See, we tell the world, we tell the quantum field, let's get a quantum field, this quantum field of energy and electricity and magnetism that we're a part of. We tell it what we want in our lives by what we project first. You're the cause. So, want to be a great dad? Start finding ways to play more. Start learning from them. I mean, this is my teacher, this little one, and I'm getting frustrated because they're interrupting me. Hold on, interrupting or showing me a new way of productivity. Because if I stop what I'm doing and if I play for a little bit, all of a sudden the chemicals that are released within me are ones of play, which are, like I said before, the dopamine, the serotonins, the oxytocins. Oxytocin is actually known as the love drug. It's a very powerful healing drug in you, and you know it right now. You have oxytocin going off in you because you're hugging your kids. You got this little smile on your face, right? And you feel what you call love inside. This feeling of closeness. That's actually oxytocin plus other drugs as well, but oxytocin being released in your body, making you feel that in love feeling. How do you want to be in love all the time? By causing your body to to secrete these chemicals of love all the time. You live longer. You age way better because you're not creating acid that's eating your body. Because you're not creating a mental hell or a physical hell, the lake of fire and sulfur. Is that a pencil?
That's a pen.
Pen. It's a pen.
That's Daddy's pen to make notes, which I can't right now, but that's okay.
That's all right. You've got a recorder in your head.
So yeah, I'm loving it, man. That's why I think it was one of the early interviews that I had with a doctor of happiness, the only doctor of happiness in the UK actually, and I don't think there's many. All of them are always researching why people are unhappy.
Well,
he's researching why people are happy. And
but exactly, a lot of doctors themselves aren't happy.
Yeah, exactly. So he actually said, like, it's so important to give 7-second hugs as much as you can, or as many times as you can each day. So we try to abide by that.
As well as the hugs, laughter does the same thing. That's why they say laughter is the best medicine, right? It's an age-old saying. Why? Is because laughter secretes the drugs, the chemicals from our endocrine system, from our glands, that bathe our system in good feelings, which heal us. The more you laugh, the more you are healed. Right? So yeah, I love that. Well, that's how really all of us, that's really what we should become, is our own doctors of happiness. Really, we're steering our own ship. So, I mean, the fact that we can choose happiness and yet sometimes don't is it's a shame. But a lot of times what ends up happening is people get lost in that unhappiness and can't find their way out. Gratefulness is a great way to be able to do that, to get yourself out. Right? It's a little trick. I'll tell you a little trick of magic, of alchemy. It's about polarity. So say, for instance, you're feeling sad. You don't want to be feeling sad for some reason. First, embrace. It's okay you feel sad. Stop pushing it away. Stop not wanting it. Stop the resistance. It's okay. Embrace it. Feel good. Maybe you need some love. Maybe you need some pampering for yourself. Maybe you have been rough on yourself and compromised yourself, maybe. I don't know. But whatever it is, there's some reason inside. You're okay. So take some time out for you. You know, do something special for yourself, maybe. Right? All of that is then to be able to turn yourself softer. Right? Turn yourself in a way that's more gentle with yourself. And it's like climbing a ladder. Right? Down here's sad, and it's on the fear side. You want to switch sides and you want to climb the ladder, rung by rung. Each rung is a state of being. Sad, I may go to maybe, maybe my next one is confused. Confused might be better than sad. Why am I even sad? Right? And I can go into that state, and then now I'm not as sad. I'm now more confused about why I'm sad. And then I can start asking different questions from the confused state than I did in the sad state. Because you only have access to the matching energy. So when you're sad, you're only going to have thoughts that are sad. When you're sad, you're only going to have proof that you need to be some more sad. It's all going to be sad all the way around. Right? It's just how it's a match game. Right? So that's what you're focused on. Thus, that's what you see or perceive. Right? So you want to change that, and you want to get yourself to gratefulness as quickly as possible. So find something in your life to be grateful for. It goes for frustration, goes for anger. In your moment, try to take a pause, a gap, and search for something in your life that you are grateful for. Anything. And in the moment of thinking what you're grateful for and feeling grateful for that, it will start shifting you from the state of the other. And what's happening inside your body biochemically is you've had acid, the frustration, the whatever, the confusion, the sad, acids being released that create those. So now you're thinking thoughts of more where your gratitude, where you're grateful for. Now all of a sudden those chemicals that get secreted, so you start feeling differently. That's all it is about running our machines. It's not this complicated, let's go into the past, let's figure out why and what and where and when, and let's blame them and let's go after them with pitchforks. And no, it's about inside, about being able to control our mechanisms, our apparatuses, our meat suits, as well as we possibly can, so that it's aligned, all three of us, body, mind, and spirit. Right? Whatever you want to call those three phases of our life simultaneously, that's where we have to dwell as parents, as entrepreneurs. We have to look after ourselves physically, we have to look after ourselves mentally, and we have to look after ourselves spiritually, soul level, whatever you want to call that other deeper level. And we do that by making sure that all is what's called alkaline. Our thoughts are of a better nature. They're secreting chemicals that make us feel better. Then by doing that, our actions will be driven from that. So we'll help somebody, we'll do a random act of kindness, we'll hug, one of our loved ones more, or pets, or which then secretes more of the good feeling. And we start that cycle, and that cycle then heals us, evolves us, which then alkalines that spiritual, that soul side of us, because that's what we're here for, evolving.
Exactly.
So as dads, as dads, it's a fantastic opportunity. It's an incredible opportunity to rise within ourselves with little helpers. The ability to have these little teachers to show us. I'd like to be able to just one quick little story about Buddha, but what I want all listeners and you, Klaus, to do is to be able to, instead of Buddha and this other man that I'm going to say, I want you to put yourself in Buddha's situation and your children as this little man. Okay? So Buddha had a heckler. This man used to follow Buddha around everywhere to all his lectures, and he used to heckle him and throw insults and try to throw Buddha off of his game. Try to get a rise out of him. You're talking all this peace. What about if I start heckling you? What if I start doing this? So he did this for ages. Every time Buddha would look at the man and bow and thank him for it. And obviously the man would get even more mad and more frustrated and more, I'm going to throw Buddha off. So then he would raise his game and do more and more. And finally he got to where he was spitting on Buddha and he was hurling insults at him and throwing things at him. And Buddha again looked at him and thank you. Thank you. So finally this man comes up to him and says, look, I've tried everything I possibly can for a long time. You know this, I'm paraphrasing, of course. and I've tried to throw you off of your game for eons now, for ages. Why is it you thank me every single time? Why is this? And Buddha said, if someone gives you a gift and you decide not to accept it, who does the gift belong to in the end? And he says, when you try to throw me off my game, you are actually helping me practice to become stronger. That's why I thank you, because without you pulling that resistance, that negative towards me, I would have nothing to work with. So he looked at the other individual not as someone he wanted to get rid of, or not as this thing that's just taking up his space, but something that's actually teaching him how to be better, allowing him to be practice. It was his gym. It was his workout area. And our children, our businesses are exactly that to us. We want to become stronger. We want to become better. Boom. Life then presents us an opportunity to become better. But it's almost always through either tragedy, trauma, or some sort of resistant thing that we say, I don't want this. That's usually where the most valuable lessons ride in on, those types of experiences. So when the child is misbehaving, quote unquote, when the child's doing something we don't like for any reason, who do we become in that moment through it? Who are we and what example are we? I see in the grocery stores all the time, child's acting up, the parent will actually yell at the child, quiet. That's how that's how zombified they are. How do you tell somebody but provide the example of its opposite? The children is not going to listen. They're going to do from what they see. That's why the child's misbehaving to begin with. So the goal is we are the bindu. We are the center in the circumference. We are what all our life stems from. Anything we look out in our life and say, I don't want this, I don't like this, has been of our creation in some way, shape, and form. It's our goal to be able to find how did we create that and not create it anymore.
Exactly.
As Jesus said, repent or turn the other cheek, to be able to turn to the other polarity, the other side of the pole, the opposite of what that is, and become that. And then we become the example, and our children follow that, our employees, our clients all follow it. I say to my clients, as one of our first exercises when we really get going one-on-one work, I say to them, if Jesus, or this thought of what you think God is, was to become in your place and be the father and be the entrepreneur and be the spouse, how would they do it? And then once they explain and they talk and they'd be this way, they'd be this way, they'd be this way. It's all love. And then I say, now you be it. And if they do that for even a few days to a week, miraculous things happen. Because even Jesus said, anything I can do, you can even do more.
Mm-hmm.
So then here's the question, as fathers, as entrepreneurs, why aren't we? Why aren't we creating absolute miracles? What other people look in and go, that's miraculous.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have the power to do. We just think we already know.
Mm-hmm. True. Man, same. I love it. Man, we went over more than 15 minutes of what I usually do, so I really appreciate that. So thank you for that. I actually got to be the first one this time. I think in almost 100 live interviews is going to say, look, I gotta say we gotta quit because my kids are about to go to bed and I want to read them their bedtime stories. That's important for me. So again, I really appreciate it. I already said this week and during a live interview, like, I think this has been, and that was like, I think at the beginning of the week, I can't even remember which interview it was. I think this has been the interview where all the questions I've written, hardly any of them I touched. This one, I touched one question, and that was the first one. And that's pretty much it. You did touch on topics that I wanted to discuss, but not as in, look, I really want to ask a question. So I really appreciate that. That's awesome. But it still means I got tons of more questions. Now I'm kind of scared because I'm sure that if I ask one more question, I'm going to have tons and tons of more questions, but that's okay. Anyway, that's it. And I'm sure there's also other dappreneurs that are watching this now in the replay that are like, Len, man, that's amazing. I actually got more questions besides your website, or maybe this is just the best place to go.
Or, you know, on Facebook too. I'm on Facebook. They can reach out and through my site. If you go on my site, there's actually an icon that has Facebook, and that you can get in Wright, just my own name, and you can reach out through there. I'm definitely open to conversations of people that are willing and brave. You know, willing to be able to, and brave enough to be able to enact them, try them out, see what results they get from them. And so I'm constantly looking for those types of people. Reach out. I have a book out as well, The Little Book of Inner Growth, on Amazon. It's less than a special cup of coffee, and it's only, I think it's 54 pages or something like that. It's not a huge read, but it is kind of deep, going over the basics. And this, you know, when it's released. So definitely go rummage around, gain some nuggets, and reach out.
Awesome, man. I love it. And for those people that have listened for more than an hour, or maybe just a little bit, and are listening to this message right now, remember, if you got that golden nugget, or if you feel like, oh yeah, that's something that, you know, I need to do, don't just think it, act on it, do it, try it. Maybe you think like, man, Len doesn't know it at always talk about, then definitely take action, because it might just be that next huge step that you're going to make in your life. So I highly recommend it. Anyway, the link is in, for the people that are on Facebook, the link is in the comments section. You can just click on it and get to his website. And for those people that are watching this on YouTube or listening on it in my podcast, make sure that you check the link in the description, and you can click on that and get in contact with Len himself. Len, again, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it. Everybody else, thank you for being in here. It was, as I promised, a very deep conversation. We went, to be honest, Len, I still have the feeling that you can go way deeper. I'm not sure if I will be able, at this point in my life where I'm at, to follow you, but I'll make sure that I want you on next year again, and then we can go even more deeper.
Yeah, it sounds good. Sounds good. I appreciate being on the show, and yeah, depth is a funny way of continually deepening.
Exactly. All right, people, thank you very much, and we'll see each other again tomorrow on another live. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.